Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you all for being so patient and tuning in at 7:20 instead of 7. I appreciate all your patience and flexibility with that. Hopefully that just means you maybe had a glass of wine beforehand, so it's a good palate cleanser, get your palate revved up and ready to go. For tonight's blind tasting of grape. We're gonna be tasting that one grape 4 different ways from 4 different distinct regions. So not only are we going to figure out what grape it is, in the second part of the class, we're gonna figure out what region each of the wines come from. Hopefully, you are all hearing me well and seeing me well. If you are playing this video up on a screen, a TV, also have it playing on like a tablet or a phone or something like that, just on mute on the side so you can more easily type in some comments. Your participation in the chat room is going to be crucial for me to help guide you through this blind tasting process. So make sure you're able to participate in the chat room. Hello, Sam Mom and Sam Pop here from Suffolk. Also with me because they're right across the table with me. So hi Tawana, good to see you from Western Branch. If you, on the top right corner of your screen, see a little circle that says sign in with a portfolio, like a little profile thing, that means you won't be able to participate in the chat room. So you have to sign into whatever like email account is connected to YouTube for you to use this chat room. So please do so. That will make my life a lot easier. Otherwise, it would be me just giving you my tasting notes, and that's not going to be very fun for you in this blind tasting. If you're logged in, go ahead and throw your name up in the chat room so I know who you are and where you're coming from. Also, tell me if this is your first blind tasting class experience. So some people I know it's their first class with me on YouTube. Some people it might be their second, but maybe it's their first blind tasting class. But tell me if this is your first ever blind tasting class experience. Just tell me in the chat room. And while we're doing that, make sure you have all of your wines. So I've got 4 glasses lined up, ready to go. Keep them in the same place every time so that you don't pick up a glass and mix it up because I can't be there to help you figure out which wine is which. So if you want to keep all your glasses straight, just keep them left to right order. We're going to be tasting left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4 from left to right. So, hey, Beverly, Robin Beverly from Virginia Beach. First blind tasting. Woohoo, I'm so excited. I like it. Steve, Sam Pop, Steve Hill says it's our first blind tasting today. That's good. It's not mine because I tasted these wines early this morning. But I love it. Lisa, coming from Carrollton, not first blind tasting, correct. You're signed up for all of mine, and that's awesome. Connie, first virtual wine tasting. Awesome. Josiah, Jacob, and Connie come in. Well, I hope I gave y'all enough tasting sheets. I think I only printed out 2 for y'all. I apologize if not. If anyone needs them, there's PDFs in your email, so you can go ahead and print them out if you need them. But I do highly recommend everyone have their own set of tasting sheets. It will be very hard to share because some people want to be on one page, another on another page. So to make sure everyone can like taste and get the most out of their own individual tasting, have tasting sheets printed out for everybody. Rick from Williamsburg, you were my last stop today, and I hit no traffic on the way back, so it was 7:20 instead of 7:30, which was great. So great to see y'all. Crystal and Brian with Mark and Kim in Chesapeake, first blind tasting. I think this is the first. Right? You were part of a tasting group that logged in with other people. I'm trying to remember, but I think this is the first time I've seen your name at least logged in through here. So Lorraine, fabulous. First virtual wine tasting. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm so excited to see you all here and to have a bunch of brand new people. And we're gonna have a blast tonight. So just as a reminder, setup. 4 glasses per person. We're going to be doing side by side, back and forth. Now just taste 2. Now just try 3. Now just try 1 and 4 together. That's where we're going to learn the most, and we're going to get the most out of that tasting. So make sure everyone has 4 glasses and you have enough wine poured of all of these. So I recommend about 4 ounces per wine. You don't have to drink it all. You can use a spit cup and spit wine. Do so however you like, or enjoy it and drink all the wine. That's totally fine with me. No one's I don't have to worry about anyone driving home because you're in your home. So if you have all 4 of those wines and your tasting notes, we shall begin soon. So, oh, that's right, Crystal. So you participated in Rhode Island. So this is the first time you've actually had your wines delivered to you. It's a pretty fun thing, having wine delivered to your doorstep. So cool. All right. Well, let me go over what information you have on these sheets in front of you so you know how best to use them and it's not so intimidating looking at this. First things first, this sheet, this classic descriptors of red varieties. You're gonna put that face down underneath all of your other pages, and we're not gonna get to that until we get to the conclusion stage of blind tasting. It will hurt rather than help your tasting experience if you start looking at that too early. So please don't look at that until I give you the thumbs up to look at that. Also, if you have your secret sealed envelope, make sure you don't look at that because that has the information of this grape and all of its regions and styles in that packet. So we don't want to look at that and give away any clues in advance. We are going to go through and we're going to use this tasting grid on each of these wines. So you have 2 sheets, and if you notice on the top it says wine number 1 all the way on the left, wine number 2 middle left, so the next one over, and then next page we have wine number 3, so next over on the right, and wine number 4, the far right. So I like to just basically spread out my tasting sheets like this and have the wines in front of them so it really connects which wine is with which tasting sheet so we don't get confused. Next page, we have the Wine 101 Basics of Tasting. If you've been participating in classes with me for a while, this is very familiar to you. I do update them regularly as people give me hints about how I could better serve the wine purposes. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. And this wine aroma charts, when we get to the smelling part of the wine, sometimes it's hard to really figure out what are you smelling. I smell a thing. I can't put my finger on it, and using this basically vocabulary word bank is really helpful for that. So use that tool as little or as much as you like. Yeah, so that's what's in front of you, and we should have our glasses in front of you. And now I'll briefly just tell you why blind tasting is important or fun. We all have, as humans, confirmation bias. Our brain is basically wired to process information in a way that only stores the correct information, only focuses on the correct information. And by correct, I mean what the brain thinks it needs to survive in any moment. So you're driving down the road, you don't notice the license plate of every single car driving by you until you do, and you know you're chasing a robber and you're looking for a specific license plate. So your brain starts clicking in on all of those license plate numbers. I don't know about that scenario, but you know what I'm saying. So our brain tunes out all of these superfluous information and only focuses on the information it thinks is important. So blind tasting is not necessarily about just getting the right grape and guessing the right region and the vintage and the producer and all that stuff. That's fun, and it's challenging and it's exciting to learn how to do, and it's a skill anyone can learn. But the purpose of blind tasting is the analyzing wine, the part of the tasting before you get to the conclusion stage, where your brain, you focus your brain on individual parts of the wine that normally your brain would skip over. So when you just drink wine, like everyone had hopefully a pre-game glass of wine that they are using to cleanse their palate, my brain is not thinking about acid level and sweetness level and the fruits that I'm smelling and tasting and all that stuff. It's just thinking overall experience of the wine. Did I like it? Did I not like it? What would I drink this with? It's an emotional connection usually, or a physical one at least at the minimum. When we start tuning in our brain to each category of the wine, it totally changes our experience. And we're gonna use our reticular activation system. and really focus on different parts of our mouth and what the wine, as it connects to that different part, tells us about what the wine is. So let's dive all in and get started with this blind tasting. So moving my glasses around to make it easier. First thing on this sheet, we're just going to go down this throughout each of the wines. So the first thing is sight. Normally we spend quite a bit of time on sight. For the purposes of today, so I don't take you all the way until 10 o'clock, we're going to go a little bit faster on this section. If you want more information on this, I do have a blind tasting video. It's called episode 1 on my YouTube channel that you can watch if you want like the full breakdown of all of these categories. The things that we're going to focus on the most, that are going to tell us the most information about what grape it is we're drinking and where it comes from, is color, concentration, and legs. So, but let's start with the least important thing, at least in terms of your wine up to a light source. You have a light source in the back. You want to give the wine some good swirls. You're going to basically see like how reflective is the wine. Is the light coming through the wine really well, or is it dull, hazy, and cloudy? So just pick up 1 and pick up 2. Do the same thing, swirl it around. 3. Ooh. That's a different one. And 4. All quite a bit different there, and just in terms of how they're reflecting light, but similar in terms of none of them was super, super cloudy or hazy. I'm not seeing tons of sediment in the glass, and that would be like little sand, looks like little sand particles. Maybe wine number 2 and wine number 3, but I'm not, maybe a little bit, maybe actually 2, 3, and 4 have a little bit of that sediment. That just tells us that the wine is unfiltered or not fully filtered and fined. Next up, the color. We're going to focus a little bit more on this. So by color, don't see color by holding the wine up to the light. You're going to see color best by holding the wine on its side, about 2-3 inches away from a white background, whether that's a paper, plate, napkin, tablecloth, or a silk shirt to make sure you don't spill. And you're looking straight down through the wine. So the best way to analyze color is to have 2 wines side by side. So just go ahead and take 1 and 2 side by side. If everyone notices, 1 has a little bit more red hues with some like purple undertones. It also is super clear, right? I can like definitely not cloudy or hazy. The wine number 2 does have some cloudiness in it. It has a little bit more of this like slightly more, there's no purple or blue undertones. It's maybe slightly some gold undertones on that, but both are pretty deep concentration, meaning I can read through it, but kind of just barely on both of these wines. Let's try 3 and 4. I wish I had 4 hands so we could do them side by side for real, but holy moly, cannot read through number 3 at all. I would need a strobe light. So that has the deepest concentration. And number 4 actually probably has the palest concentration. I can read through it easier. Also notice the difference in coloring. We have a lot more purplish, bluish tinged coloring to wine number 3. Wine number 4 is definitely like wine number 2, is that red with flecks of brown or gold. So we will get into what information that tells us later, but just note that. So in terms of your sheets here, we have 3 options: purple, ruby, and garnet. And whenever one is kind of oscillating between 1 or 2, then I circle both of them, like a line between them, or join them together or something like that. Use your notes however you like. But I would definitely say wine number 1 would be ruby with like the LE of purple, if you were to circle just some of purple. Wine number 2 would be ruby with maybe just the G of garnet. Garnet is more that brownish hue, not like what we think of garnet. And we think of garnet as like deeply red or purple or dark. Garnet in the wine world means more brownish, goldish. Wine number 3 is definitely like purple with maybe just the R of ruby circled in there. And wine number 4 finally would be like more garnet with the BY of ruby. So not everything fits in one category, nor should it, because that blind tasting would be very boring that way. So now we've got clarity, color, concentration done with all of these wines. We'll get to more participation when we get to the smell part. That's a little bit more fun. This gets us past the initial part a little bit faster. So for the final part of sight, we were going to talk about legs or tiering. So as you swirl the wine with the light source behind you, hopefully, you wait and let the wine settle. As the wine settles, as the wine coats the inside of the glass, it forms these legs or teardrops that form and fall down the inside of the glass. Now, we're not looking for length, right? You don't talk about long legs. Well, you do, just not in terms of wine. But the length is literally just how aggressively you swirl. How close to the rim do you get the wine? The legs are going to be as long as you swirl the wine into the glass. What we're looking for is thickness and definition of the wine. So how thick they are, each individual drip, and how defined each drip is, and also how slowly they are to form and fall. This key comes to region because the legs tell us alcohol percentage, and different regions are warmer than others, and warmer regions produce wines with higher or more elevated alcohol contents. And even if it's just a difference between 1 to a 1.5% alcohol, that will be noticeable in the wine, and that will help you figure out which region is which. So if you swirl maybe just 1 and 2 together, let them settle at the same time, and notice how long they take to form and fall. And always look at the part of the glass that's further away from you. It's easier for your eyes to kind of concentrate and focus on those legs. I am getting definitely much thicker legs on wine number 1, but a little thinner and more defined legs on number 2. Also, wine number 1, I'm getting like a second round of legs, which are forming and falling, which are even slower than the first round. But overall, there's a big difference to me, and this is why having the same glassware for each of the wines is so important, because glassware will make a difference in the legs. So I would say, judging on this, that wine number 1 has slightly more alcohol content than wine number 2. Let's try 3 and 4. But both of them were falling pretty slowly and were pretty defined and or thick. Especially if it's the first wine, the first time you're swirling the glass, you kind of want to swirl pretty aggressively to make sure that the glass is kind of fully coated by the wine. Now wine number 3, it almost looks like there just aren't any legs. And that's because they just haven't started forming and falling yet. They're taking so long. I'm at like 1/8 of an inch falling on wine number 3, while my legs on wine number 4 are already all the way down the glass. So very clearly higher alcohol content in wine number 3 than in 4. I'd say of all of these, we're looking at, 3 to 5 in terms of level 1 to 5, the legs, 1 to 5, 1 being fast to form, 5 being slow to form. We're looking at medium so medium would be 3 to 5. And I'd say number 3 was the slowest to form. So I'd say that would be like level 5 in terms of slow to form. I'd say number 1 would be probably like a 4 to a 4.5. And I'd say wine number 2 would be about a 4, and wine number 4 would be about a 3.5 to a 4. So all closely related, which they should be because they're all the same grape, just slight differences. And these are the slight differences, the splitting of hairs, that is going to be most important when it comes down to not figuring out what grape it is, but where each individual wine comes from. So that's why your notes are so important, because we can't remember all of this information an hour later after tasting all of these wines. So make sure you take really good notes of these things, because color, concentration, and legs will be very important in terms of region figuring outing, because that's a word. All right, let's get into the smell, because now that we've swirled the wines a bit, they have hopefully been opening since 6 o'clock and should be breathing quite well by now. Give each wine a good swirl and stick your nose all the way in that glass. I mean, pushing your nose all the way into the glass. I like to smell in a few different ways. I kind of do the full nose in, the full deep inhale, and you get a little head buzz if you do that too much. And then I usually go side to side, because different parts of our nose smell or pick up different aromatics, especially if you're like me and have bad allergies, and sometimes I can smell better out of one side of my nose than the other. I also will change up between long, deep inhales through my nose and then kind of like short little sniffs. Each way just gives us a little bit different information about the wine. But the key would be to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So smelling them side by side. So I just did kind of a quick intro to wine number 1 on the nose. Now give wine number 2 some good swirls and some, as Gary Vee would call it, sniffy sniffs. Don't take too long. Don't think too much about it yet. We're going to get more into the specifics, but first we just kind of want an overall first impression of the aromatics of each of these wines. Whew. Wine number 3. Oh man, not only is it just so different in terms of color, but very different in terms of aromatics. It will be impossible to lose this in your glass. So if this wine doesn't look and smell radically different, make sure you poured all the different wines. All right, so go on to number 4, and then after that, we're gonna get more into each of these different categories of aromatics and what we not should be picking up. I don't like to use that term. I hate experts who get up in front of this. Well, that doesn't help anyone develop their own palate, and sometimes those experts are wrong, so I don't like the word should be. Wow. So different. I promise you all 4 of these wines are the same grape. So awesome. I love it, Beverly. Yes, the smell of number 2. All 4 of these are really interesting. But yeah, the smell of number 2 to me is definitely quite possibly the most pull me in kind of wine. So, all right. So first off, I like to talk about intensity of wine, because that helps us figure out what grape it is and sometimes what region it comes from. So intensity is just how much, how bold, how loudly is this wine talking to you? Not the sight, not the legs, not the tasting. If you've already tasted, that's fine. But we're going to analyze it in each of these steps. But the intensity is just the smell. So is it bursting from the glass, really extroverted, like wine number 3? Wine number 3 is like level 10 out of 1 to 5 in terms of intensity. So go ahead and just, if there's one thing driving the aroma bus, one smell that to you is dominating, then go ahead and tell me what wine it is, level 1 to 5, how intense is it, and what is that one smell? So always for this class, since we are tasting wines side by side, 4 of them, just start your comment off of with like number 2, so we all know what we're talking about, or number 3, whatever it is. So tell me which wines are more intense to you, and what is that one singular note if you could peg just one thing? What's driving the bus? Whew. Man, going back to number 1 now. I love going back to them all after smelling them all just briefly. Whew. All All right, I know there's always like a delay in when I ask a question, you put in a comment and when it's in there. So just bear with me with, internet. Lorraine says, number 4 has a heavy woody smell. Yes, that is definitely the predominant characteristic just initially on that wine. Number 2, dried figs and potting soil. Cool, I love it. I love the potting soil call too. And I love that you call the fruit and the condition of that awesome. Number 1 has a citrusy fruit smell. So whenever I get citrusy fruit in red wine, I always think of the oils of citrus, so like lemon oil or orange oil or grapefruit seed oil extract kind of thing, that a little bit more dense and viscous qualities of citrus fruit. And I would agree with you. I think like grapefruit seed extract or the oranges that you put the cloves in it, at the Christmas time. So number 4, like a forest fire. So that's smoky and woodsy notes. So cool. Yes. So fruit isn't driving the bus on number 4 at all. It's definitely like this woodsy characteristic to it. Number 4, smoke. Yes. Awesome. Cool. I love I love how everyone is in different places and different homes and still having a similar experience. That's awesome. Powers of technology. Crystal, number 4 smells like a blow-up float right out of the package. You might be getting a little rubber. That should actually blow away. The wine has, so it gives the wine some really good swirls. It might even kind of be stuck in the glass. Sometimes the smell like that is right when you open a wine, and it'll get like stuck kind of in the glass. So give the wine a good swirl and then do a big puff of air into the glass and kind of push those esters out of the way. We don't want those. So swirl the wine and then, that just splattered back in my face. So that should push the esters out of the way. If you're ever kind of stuck on one smell or like you're not really getting a lot out of the wine, sometimes that helps create some diversity. So tell me, Crystal, try that and tell me if that blows off a little bit in the wine. So more heavy swirls changed. Okay, good. My guess is that was actually the glass a little bit. Sometimes, especially crystal, just is funky and weird. All right, let's see. So Beverly, 2 smells like an herb garden, and number 1 smells like dark fruit. Okay, cool. I like the herbs call. It's like the predominant fruit on that. And that dark fruit, yes. Number 1, some green beans. There are some vegetal notes in this. Yes, some pop for the win. Dark jammy fruit, driving the bus. Yes, fruit forward with these greener undertones. Love it, love it, love it. Man, y'all have already guessed the right grape. All from your notes. Everyone, this is why writing down your notes are so important, because every time I'm seeing like the right thing, I'm getting so excited. I'm like, yes, that is the clue. That's the clue. Make sure you write that down. So please write down your notes because you get every So number 1, crushed tart cherries. Yes, we've got some red and some dark fruit going on in wine number 1. Absolutely agree. And they're definitely like crushed, racinated, dried. Like there's some jamminess to them, some intensity to them. Number 1, more cloves and dark spices. Yeah, so that goes kind of with that citrus oil and the clove that I was talking about with the orange within there. And that this is, whenever you get the heavy clove note and dark spices note, that's an indication of oak aging usually. So some heavier oak on this. Crystal, we already talked about that. Lorraine, number 3 smells like tree fruit, like apple or pear, milder. Oh, I can see like red apple skins. Kind of like what I imagine Snow White's poison apple to smell like the flavor on the inside, but the skins themselves have like this bitter red note to it, like that. Coconut and spices on number 2. Yes, great, cool. So again, we're picking up those oak notes on both of those, Rick. So awesome. Wine number 2, Tawana says creme brulee on the end. Yes, there is this caramelization, this like sweeter smell to the note. I promise you the wine's not sweet, but there is definitely that. Chris says, number 3, black currant, super fruit forward. Yes, oh my word. So much fruit. And man, And it's very, never mind. I'm not going to say it yet. Awesome. Talk to me more, y'all, about wine number 4. It's less intense, right? The other 3 are so much more like the extroverts, the center of attention, the people dancing in the party. And wine number 4 is definitely like the person sitting on the side, like doing sketches of everybody else in a very poetic way while they're all partying it up. So it's more introverted, it's less intense, it's kind of over here in the corner and not fruit forward. So it's definitely like the shy one of the party, a little bit different. While we're smelling through those, again, we've talked about intensity and kind of what's driving the bus. Do you want to talk about, on your pages here, if we have intensity, then we talk about fruit, then we talk about fruit condition. So whenever you think about a fruit, say it is, let's pick up wine number 3. We're going to do this together, wine number 3. So we talked about the fruit. I'm sorry. Which one did I want to talk about? So wine number, trying to give information without giving like very specific clues or hints. So let's do wine number 2. Everyone pick up wine number 2. Definitely there are these like herbs and spices and kind of this woodsy note kind of predominant. The fruit that's here though is definitely on the like red and black fruit. So let's say I get cherry. There's cherries in all red wines. Interestingly enough, it's always a correct flavor profile in a red wine. And I get blackberry and I get currant. Now, the next step is to figure out the condition. Is this underripe, meaning does it smell like tart and bitter? Or is it overripe? Does it smell super sweet? Or maybe it's cooked and smells like you're making homemade jams. Or putting it into a cobbler. Maybe it's dried and smells like the fruit leather you get at Trader Joe's. Maybe it's raisinated, where it's this kind of like pungently aromatic and sweet condensed style. So whenever you name a fruit in a wine, especially when you're doing a blind tasting, think after you get to the fruit, think about the fruit condition. You can do the same thing with herbs. Whenever you talk about herbs, are they fresh and you're just about to cut them to dice them up and put fresh cilantro on tacos? Or is it dried and in a jar? Or are they cooked? Because that smells totally different. So if you can, in any 4 of these wines, pick out a fruit and tell me the condition of that fruit. So dried cherry, candied cherry, cherry pie. Tell me a condition of one fruit in one wine. Doesn't have to be all 4, just anything that strikes your fancy that seems like it's the easiest one to fit. So number 4, the Funk Soul Brother, maybe a little Brett on the nose. Yes. And so for everyone's who's wondering what Brett is short for Brettanomyces. And that has that barnyardy characteristic, that slight manure-ish, horse shit, basically is what Brettanomyces smells like. And sometimes it's just slightly there in the wine, like in number 4, it is there just a little bit. And sometimes it's the only thing you can smell in a wine. So this is definitely like in that small capacity in there. So number 1 and 2, I got jammy plums and blueberries. Okay, awesome. So that's the condition, that jammier style, that super sweet, almost juicy, because they're so sweet and so ripe. So number 2, dill and ripe. Okay, great. So this is the second part that we were talking about oak, dill and coconut, which was mentioned before on number 2, are interestingly, so dill and coconut sometimes indicates American oak aging, specifically. So just keep that in mind. Let's see, going back to some that I missed. Number 4, is that a briny smell on number 4? Yeah, I think that there is some like olive notes on there. Like I want tapenade, green olive tapenade, after smelling this. So yes, I think that there is like a little bit of saltiness on that wine. Number 4, getting raisin with hints of vanilla. Okay, awesome. So there is that fruit there, but it's like dark and raisinated with vanilla, also an indication of oak. So man, there's a lot of oak going on in all of these wines. Not lose your license like I have. And they always, like, you have to take a test at the end, and they're always like, this is an interesting fact. Oh, what's this? Your tires should be rotated 3 times a year. Like, and they very obviously give you clues because they teach to the test. I may or may not do that sometimes, so just beware. All right, number 1, smells like fruit that fell off the tree that is lying on the ground and very ripe. So hello, fruit condition. Thank you. That is awesome. So super ripe, to the point that you're not picking it anymore. It's naturally just falling off. Cool. That was so specific. My type A heart is very happy right now. So thank you. Awesome. All right. So we've talked about some non-fruit, but if everyone can go on the wine aroma chart, anything in the vegetal or spicy category we haven't really touched on much, and they're caramelized is really just kind of with older wines, and none of these necessarily fall into that category. But vegetal and spicy notes are important distinctive qualities in red wines that can help us narrow down the grape a little bit more. So just look through those, and sometimes for each one I'll go like bay leaf, and I think in my head what a bay leaf smells like. And then I smell each wine to see if any of them smell like bay leaf. Sometimes it's how I push myself past the boundaries of just what's immediately obvious to me in a wine. So do that with a few of these wines. Just go down through some of the vegetal and spicy categories and those words. And if anything jumps out at you, put it in the chat room. Just tell me what it is, which wine it is, and what jumped out at you. Ooh, man, I'm used to having my bigger glasses tonight, so I'm gonna be swirling my wine all over the place. All right, let's see here. Number 1, some dry dates. Great. Fruit and condition. Awesome. So Chris, I think for number 1, you also said candied cherries, which is cool. So we're getting candied fruit and dried fruit, both dark and red on that. So that's awesome. Number 4, some eucalyptus. All right, eucalyptus on wine number 1. By the way, I'm totally agreeing with you. Yes, eucalyptus is in these wines. What else on the vegetal and spicy category might you be getting? So in this like tomato season right now, anytime I see tomato, it's funny, I usually don't smell the actual tomato in a wine, but sometimes I smell like the tomato leaf or the tomato vine. It has a distinct vegetal quality to it. I don't get that in these wines necessarily. I just look down at and realize I haven't had a fresh garden tomato yet this year. I need my friends with gardens to do tomato delivery service. We talked about green bean. That was pretty cool. We've mentioned dill now, eucalyptus. Awesome. I think to me, I'm getting some like pepper notes on these wines. To me, wine number 3 has like distinct, like more like bell pepper. That's, if you've ever like charred your own bell peppers, just like on a gas stove or something like that, or right off the grill when you're making kebabs and they're on the when they get like charred and black on the outside. I'm getting some green pepper in those styles on several of these wines. So Number 4 has a smoky black pepper. Okay, awesome. I have a ham smokehouse. Yes, so we were talking about forest fire and some smoke earlier with wine number 4. I like this ham smokehouse. That kind of goes also with the salty thing that we were talking about earlier. That salty, meaty, savory, irony, like animalistic style with that smokiness. Love pepper. Yes, yes, yes. Number 2, clove, anise, and hint of fennel. Yes, we do have some like vegetable notes on there, but definitely like this, like more pungent spices are taking over on number 2. And sorry, going up, bay leaf on wine number 3. Yes, I'm smelling like lots of very intense bitter things on wine number 3. We're talking about the bitter apple skins. Bitter bay leaf is really bitter and kind of can be pungent. If you've ever just chewed on a raw bay leaf fresh off a tree, don't recommend doing it because it'll mess up your palate for like 6 hours. But if you want that experience to know what that's like, then do it. When I did live classes for my employees when I was training people, we'd go on field trips and we just like walk through gardens and just time anyone ever just picked a bay leaf off of a tree and smelled it rather than just in a jar from the grocery store. So sometimes those experiments are really helpful. So number 2, some licorice and basil. Cool. So we've got this like darker notes on this. And yeah, basil is actually, of the vegetable category, on that licorice side. Like if you've ever had Thai basil, it tastes like straight up licorice. So awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna go back and smell the wines as we taste through them, but I do want to start tasting wines now. Real quick, I'll just talk through the taste palette right here. So these correspond with your tasting grids. So if I talk too quickly when I'm explaining a specific test, then reference this sheet because that will hopefully clue you in on what I'm talking about. So first things first is acid. Acid is not a pleasant thing in wine, neither is tannins, and we're going to experience both of those in high degrees with 4 red wines. But remember, we're not discussing whether or not we like the wine yet. We're only just activating certain parts of our experience with the wine to really focus on that one experience, to give us like a highlighted, intense, focused view on that. So acid. We're going to take the wine. We're going to rewind. If you haven't done this already, go ahead and do so now. We're going to take a small sip of each wine. Swish it around your mouth just kind of gently, just so it kind of coats your mouth, and you can swallow it. I just want this first impressions, just like we did with the smell before we really got into it. Want kind of a first impression of the taste of each of these wines. Think about what you smelled with the wines as you do so. See if the palate is kind of, yeah, that confirms what I thought it would taste like, or sometimes, whoa, that's totally different. That's the impression that we're looking for. Okay. Wow, it's crazy trying these wines side by side so quickly. That kind of gives you a more intense idea of their differences. Well. Some of these are surprising because I tried them, at like 9:30 this morning, and they didn't taste quite like this. Oh, yes, I agree with you, Tawana. It's hard to believe that these are the same grape. And we will talk about why once we get to the end of the tasting. So, all right, cool. Yes, number 4, after all 3 of the others, radically different. Oh, man. We've got our work cut out for us, for sure. All right, so now getting back to the test. Acid is the mouth watering effect in the back of your mouth, like right where your gums meet, your jaw meets right here. Basically what's going to happen is after we give the wine a little bit more of a good swirl, a really intense swirl in the mouth, either spit or swallow, either one, and then you're going to lean back you're gonna touch the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth right behind your front teeth, and you're gonna breathe in. So swish, 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 swallow, then lean back and breathing in is gonna, like that. After you lean back, it's gonna focus the airflow right where your salivary glands are, and you're gonna feel them pucker up. You'll feel your mouth watering. You can then, after do that, you can lean forward and feel how much you are salivating. So everyone's gonna experience acids slightly differently, and depending on what you ate or drank beforehand, depends on how sensitive you are to acid, everyone's gonna have slightly different perceptions of this. So tasting wine number 1, then I'll give you a reference point for how high the acid is. Then you know that's your benchmark reference point for a wine with this level of acid. So let's try one. Okay, I'm getting some pucker effect. Leaning forward, I feel my mouth watering. If it doesn't look super high, I would say 3.5 for wine number 1. So I always like points because it gives me more options. 1 to 5 is so limited, but 3.5 gives me an option for not just 3, not up to 4 yet. So let's put that a reference point for what 3.5, medium to medium plus we call it, looks like in wine. Do the same test for 2, 3, and 4, and you tell me which one you think has the highest level of acidity. Which one makes your mouth water the most and drool the most and pucker the most? And 2 is a little bit different. Okay. This is quite interesting. Oh, man. Okay, wow. Oh, man. Yeah, so Rick, I'd agree with you in terms of like body and structure, but man, when you do the acid test, that wine is intense on the acid scale for sure out of all of those. All right, so you guys tell me which one you think is the highest out of all 4 of those wines, which one has the lowest out of all of them. Or just pick one to tell me what you got in terms of 1 to 5 acid, either 1, 2, 3, or 4. I like to drink water after the different tests to kind of like rehydrate and reset your palate. If you've got food that you're eating, just be aware that eating food throughout each of the different wines will change the way the wines taste. So I'd say snack on something super bland. And then after we get to the conclusion stage and after we've done all the tests, then eat away and see how the wine changes. But eating bland food that's not going to affect the taste of the wine is really helpful to cleanse your palate without affecting the taste of the wine. So Tawana, number 2 and 4 are very close for highest acidity. Okay, yeah, I would agree with you. Number 1 was the lowest. Yes, I agree. Man, Tawana, you're like so proud of you. That's awesome. You've been attending like every single blind tasting class and like every virtual class as well. So you are knocking it out of the park. Lisa, 1 lowest, 4 possible highest. Also, yes. And yes, Lisa, you've attended every blind tasting class too. So just so you guys know, Lisa and Tawana, watch out for their comments because they're now like my expert blind tasters. Connie, number 1, the lowest, and Mom thinks 4. Thinks 4 is the lowest, or 4 is the highest, or 4 is what? Just tell me, Connie, about that one. 4 is highest, okay? 4 is highest, 2 is close. Yes, absolutely. You are getting better. You're getting so good. Not that you weren't good at before, but you're just getting better. Chris, agree with Talana. Awesome. Rick, can high alcohol confuse acidity? Every part of wine will confuse the other parts of wine, right? So dense fruit will confuse acidity. Dense fruit will also confuse tannins. Alcohol confuses tannins. Alcohol confuses sweetness. That is why we do each of these individual tests. So we're basically trying to tune out all other information except for acid. Then we get to the next test, we're trying to tune out acid and all other information, and we're just going to discuss sweetness. So it is literally just practice in terms of not letting other parts of the wine confuse whatever test you're doing or whatever part of the wine you're trying to focus on. But yeah, it is tough because they get in the way. All right, so 1 is the highest, 2 and 3 are similar. Yeah, and Mom thinks 4 was the lowest. Okay, so number 4 is the lowest of something, but it's probably not acid. Number 4 is the lowest in terms of body, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's just super light bodied, so it seems like it's doing less in your mouth. Rick called it flat. It's just doing less in your mouth compared to the other 3. But if you do the test again, make sure you swish it and get it all the way back in there and breathe in and really focus on just what your salivary glands are doing. And if they're puckering and watering, I think you will find that number 4 is pretty darn high. So in terms of 1 to 5, I'd say number 1, we talked about that was like a 3.5. I'd say number 2 and number 4, we're looking at a 4.5-ish. It's probably slightly lower, but not that much lower than the other 2. All pretty close. We're looking at a 3.5 to a 4.5, not this huge difference, but those minute differences will help us figure out what region the wine comes from. So if ever you do a test and you're getting totally off base from what everyone else is doing, try drinking some water, eating a cracker, something like that, doing the test again, but maybe in a different order, maybe doing number 4 first and then going down 3, 2, 1. Sometimes just it's hard for our brain to get all of the information when we do the test this quickly, but it's part of the fun and the practice and the challenge. All right, we're going to talk about sweetness. This is a pretty fast test, so we won't have to do it too long. And sweetness is just how sweet the wine actually is. So how much sugar is actually remaining in the wine. Not how sweet the fruit is, sugar in the wine left over from fermentation process. Pretty rare in red wines these days, except for certain regions and styles. But the part of our mouth that focuses or that picks up on sweetness the most intensely is the tip of our tongue. So we want to concentrate, just like we did with the acid, we want to concentrate the experience of the wine with just that part of our tongue, of our mouth. So we're going to stick the tip of our tongue into the glass like so. Super odd to do in public. If this is your first time doing it, don't worry. It never gets less awkward, especially when you do it on live camera. But after don't bring the wine into your mouth, just your tongue into the wine. And then afterwards, you can kind of really feel if there is any sweetness on the tip of my tongue. Let me try. We're just going to do this for 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll talk about if any of them have any sweetness. Ooh. Man, number 4 is like negative sweetness. It's like I use chalk when I'm working out, and it gets all in the air in my mouth sometimes when I clap my hands, and it feels like I just got a bunch of that on the tip of my tongue. It's so dry. That's what we call bone dry. So for reference points, number 4 is like -5 on a scale of 1 to 5, but really we definitely put 1, the lowest on the scale of 1 to 5. Number 3, yeah. So Chris is right. I think both 1, 2, and 3 probably all have the slightest residual sugar, and I'm talking like less than 3 grams of residual sugar per liter. So very, 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 very low, still considered absolutely dry. Yes, it does. So definitely on the dry scale, all of them, but number 4 is bone dry, like the driest of the dry. Number 1, 2, and 3, not sweet wines by any stretch of the imagination, but they might be on like a 1.3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So that's the sweetness level. I'll consider dry and not the most important test. So we're gonna keep going to the tannin level. Now, we are going to wreck our palates. We are going to struggle to enjoy any of these wines when we do this test, and just be down for it. So the tannin test is where you swish the wine in your mouth, then you're gonna push it up into the front of your gums, hold it up there for a little bit and release it, either spit cup or back. And then kind of let your mouth regroup, and then you're gonna wait for the punch in the face that is tannins. And it will feel like you're at the dentist's office and they just shoved a bunch of the cotton balls up into your gums to dry it out. And these wines are going to dry out your gums, your cheeks, your lips, and all around. You will feel some sensations on your tongue that's generally not tannins. It's more what we call minerality in wine. So focus your experience just on the front of your mouth, the mouth drying effect. So it's literally the opposite of acid. Acid's the mouth watering effect in the back of your mouth. Tannin is the mouth drying effect, the front of your mouth. So I will demonstrate, and it will make your teeth purple. It is fine. You will brush your teeth after the tasting, and it will not stain your teeth, I promise. All right, that's wine number 1. Then I've got to wait a little bit. Tannins are literally long-chain polymers that act as an astringent. They exist in the grape skin itself, the seed of the grape, and the oak that the wine was aged in, the barrel. All right, so number 1, I haven't gotten that full onslaught. They're there. I feel them. It's just not crazy, crazy intense in the thing that's done ever, so reserved. But man, I'm getting all these fruit notes on the tip of my tongue. Is kind of lingering. I know we're not supposed to think about anything else but the tannins, but that fruit was so vibrant. All right, let's try number 2. In between each wine, please rehydrate with water, because otherwise the tannins just compound, and you think number 4 is literally just a glass full of tannins. So you do need to rehydrate your mouth with water before you do the tannin test on the next wines. All right, push that water all up into where you push that wine into before you go to the next one. And yes, the gum test, I love it, yes. And we'll, when you do this, thanks for the reminder, Chris. When you do this, focus on if you feel those tannins more in your cheek. That'll give us some information, which we will talk about a little bit later. Like my soundtrack is just this chair squeaking as I am. I do need to play some music for the times that I just have everyone do a test. Ooh, all right. Man, I thought it was over, but this is, sometimes there's like this delayed reaction with the tannins, and I'm definitely getting like this delayed reaction of tannins on my number 2. Although still not this full-on onslaught. Assault? What am I trying to say? What is the English word? Onslaught? That is the word, right? Okay. All of a sudden, it sounded very strange. Yeah, my mouth is still dry. They seem pretty like rustic as well. So like kind of like thicker grained tannins. They rather than super fine grained. We'll talk about that later. All right. Let's try number 3. I don't know, I just spit out the water like it was wine. I did that with coffee the other morning. I've been doing so many wine tastings, and you know, when you do those, you spit the wine throughout the whole thing, because when you get inebriated, you just like your sensitivity goes down. So I'm drinking coffee in the morning, and I'm like, take a big sip, and I like swirled around my mouth, and I spat it out into the sink, and I thought, what in the world am I doing? I need that. Obviously, I need it more than I thought. All right, wine number 3, let's see. This, by the way, I don't believe in gimmicks, and I don't get money for sponsorships. But when you just spill red wine, oh my word, I can't even talk right now because the onslaught of tannins on wine number 3 just hit me. It's called Wine Away, and you literally spray this spray on leather, on carpet, on couches, or on white pants that you just spill red wine on, and immediate release of wine stains. So highly recommend. Great investment of your wine collection if you drink as much red wine as me. All right, so number 3, so far I'm getting the highest level tannins. I've only tried 1, 2, and 3, but real intense, kind of like punch you in the face tannins for sure. Let's see, Sun Pop says 1 is the lowest tannins, 2 and 3 seem about 3.5, and 4 seems like a 5. Okay, I'm about to get to number 4. Let's see if it's a 5. Need to rehydrate. All right, now I'm nervous for number 4.
Number 4.
All right, my mom likes to play jokes tell me jokes right when I'm swishing wine in my mouth. She was just making fun of how you can't talk even after number 4 because the acid is so high, but didn't get a chance to put the wine up in my gums without spitting it out. So let's see. Oh man. Oh. So number 4 has level 10 out of 1 to 5 acid, -5 on 1 to 5 sweetness, and level 10 out of 1 to 5 tannins. This is a pretty extreme wine. Okay, yeah, my mouth hurts right now a little bit. Number 4 is like you ate sand. Yes, absolutely. Oh man. All right, number 3 and 4 had really high tannins. 1 seemed to be the lowest. Yes, I would agree so far. Yes, Beverly. I need to, next time I get these, I'm gonna get it like a case. I buy them wholesale, and so I'll just like deliver them with every wine package, just so. Number 2 is definitely a wow in contrast with number 1. Tell me what do you mean? So out of 1 and 2, why was 2 a lot lower, a lot higher, just different? What's going on? Oh yeah, real intense tannins here. I'm feeling most of my my particular tannins, like where I'm feeling it in the mouth too, is like way up in my gums. Not even just like around my teeth, but like all through my gums and my cheeks. I'm kind of all over. It's just, yeah, a full takeover of the mouth. All right. Whew, man, tannin test is brutal. Everyone just like pat yourself on the back. You got through the most brutal test in terms of blind tasting. Rehydrate your mouth. We're gonna start thinking about these wines in a little bit of a different way. So we kind of need to like rehydrate, regroup. If you have a palate cleanser wine, then take a little, but make sure you get some water in your mouth. And then we're gonna regroup and talk through body, finish, balance, and complexity of the wine. And we're actually not making bad time too. All right. I keep trying to get better at these blind tastings, and I realized I was spending way too much on the first part site, that we weren't getting to the really fun part of the conclusion without me needing to speed it up because I felt bad for taking you guys' time for so long into the night. So thank you for being flexible with me as I learn how to do virtual classes. Always a fun challenge. All right. So tannins, I would agree. Number one, we're looking at a 3.5, just like kind of acid was. Number 2 and 3, I'd say we're looking at a 4 to 4.5, depending on which one. They varied in texture of tannins, but I think the intensity of tannins was pretty similar on both of those. And number 4 is definitely 5, right? Definitely, 100%, that's 5. If you didn't feel those tannins, then I don't know what to say. Do the test again. Maybe it just had a really delayed reaction, but push the wine up into your mouth. Make sure that you know what high tannin wine feels like. It's a sensation you don't necessarily want, but you need to know what it feels like. So, all right. So alcohol level is basically just, we kind of viewed it when we were looking at the legs, but when you want to taste alcohol, we're going to focus our senses when we're swallowing the wine, how far down in our esophagus we feel that burn, that alcohol burn. You do a shot of tequila is always my example because I love tequila. You feel that burn all the way down into your chest, sometimes your toes. So the higher the alcohol content, the lower you will feel that burn. Wine generally what you'll feel from about here, which is about like 10, 11%, to about here, which is 15, 16. This is pretty extreme. Most wines kind of end at like 14.5. These days, thanks global warming, more like 14.5 to 15 is higher alcohol content. So we're gonna be medium alcohol content. You'll feel right about here. And everyone is, again, gonna be different levels of sensitivity to this, depending on kind of what you drink and just like how you feel things. So let's try number 1. I'll give you a benchmark and then you can go through all 4 of them. So you do have to swallow the wine for this test, which I appreciate this part of the blind tasting. All right, so number 1, actually, everything was so far was just kind of medium across the board, but I'm actually feeling quite elevated alcohol content. So I'm getting closer to the 14%, 14.5% range for me when I taste number 1. Try the rest of the wines and you tell me which one you felt the lowest burn, meaning the highest alcohol content. If you need to re-pour your wines because we do so many tests of the tasting part of it, do so. Number 2, are y'all getting lower or higher alcohol content than number 1? The same?
A little lower.
A little lower, yeah. You mean you felt it lower or lower alcohol content? Okay. It's always the question. It's like, turn up the AC. Wait, what do you mean? Do you mean turn up the temperature or turn up the fans? Like, it's the phrase. And so when you say you feel it lower, does that mean lower alcohol content or you feel the burn lower? Is one of the confusing questions that I always ask in wine classes. So, see. Man, the taste, every time I get to wine number 3, it's just so different. It's kind of like this shock compared to tasting 1 and 2. And then 4 is even more shocking, but less shocking because I was just shocked by number 3. Shoot, I forgot to focus on the alcohol. Gotta drink it again. Okay. All right. All right, let's see your notes. Y'all tell me which one had the highest alcohol content, meaning you felt it lower. Which one had the lowest alcohol content, which meaning you felt it higher. Chris, we have similar impressions as 1. I need further explanation. Please do tell. Beverly, higher alcohol content in 2, she says, which some pop agrees with you. Some mom says higher alcohol content in wine number 1. I would kind of agree with her, but we'll see. And again, everybody's got, they feel alcohol differently. And again, it's not the most important test. So don't rush on that. Tawana, highest alcohol content on number 3 with 4 coming in a close second. All right, interesting. Lisa, 3 seems the highest. Lorraine, 1 seems the highest. Rick says 3 highest, 1 lowest, maybe 4. All right, so we are all over the map on our answers for this. Oh, gotcha. 1 and 2. Thank you for the clarification. Sorry. So alcohol is one of those things that it could help us figure out some regions sometimes, but it's not the most important thing. And here's the thing. Really well-made wine is going to have super well integrated alcohol, so it's not going to be obvious, and so you're going to have to focus really hard to like feel that alcohol sensation. I've had wines that I was like, oh man, maybe 12%, like 12.5%. That feels very low. And it was a 14.5% wine. The wine was just so well made. The alcohol was so well integrated into the wine. And I've had the opposite reaction sometimes where a wine that was 15% alcohol, I thought it was 13 because it just felt like fire going down my throat. And it was just 13% alcohol. It just wasn't the most integrated wine. So part of the alcohol sensation has more to do with winemaking techniques. So not the most important thing, which means we'll move on. All right, body. Body is the weight of the wine on your tongue as you're drinking it. So it doesn't have anything to do with alcohol, doesn't have anything to do with tannins or sweetness or acid or anything. So you almost want to take a sip of the wine. Don't swish it around. You don't want to activate your salivary glands. You don't want to push it up into your gums and focus on tannins. Don't think about it, the tip of your tongue for sweetness. Don't think about it as you swallow it. Just think about the kind of the weight of the wine. After you swallow it, how heavy does it continue to sit on your tongue? So if you drink skim milk, it's very light bodied. It doesn't sit heavy on your tongue versus like whole milk or sweetened condensed milk. Definitely sits heavier on your tongue if that explanation helps. So minimal swish, but really we're focusing on the weight of our tongue, not the weight of our tongue, the weight of our wine on our tongue. So go through wine 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is when everyone starts getting a little tipsy, so bear with me. We do so many tests so fastly. Just taste them again, taste them again, taste them again. That was too delicious. I didn't want to spit that out. Oh. Every time I get to number 3. All right, what do you think across the board? Is there a similarity or are they all super different? I think we're talking about, okay, so Some Pop says number 2 has the most body, number 4 has the lowest. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think number 2 definitely has like a fuller bodied weight of the wine, and number 4 is definitely that more lift. So fullest to leanest, number 4 fullest, okay. 3 to 1 to 2 So Lorraine, just want to clarify, you think 4 is the fullest bodied and 3 is the lesser bodied, the lighter bodied. Just clarify that for me so I know, and anyone else chime in. What was the highest, the fullest bodied? What was the lightest bodied for you? Connie said 2 had the fullest, 4 the lightest. All right, so y'all are agreeing with some pup, but Lorraine might be saying the opposite. So if you agree with Lorraine, chime in. To me, yes, that's right. Okay, cool. All right, and again, we're all going to experience wine a little bit differently. We're splitting hairs here, right, y'all? Like this is all one grape, so they're all going to have very similar characteristics, which this is when you get to be a better taster, is when you do learn how to split those hairs. So Rick says highest to lowest. 3 has the highest, then number 2, then number 1, then number 4. Yeah, I think 3 and 2, I agree that 2 is definitely fuller bodied than, so yes, Joanna, they're all pretty close. 1 might be the fullest bodied for you, okay? Yeah, pretty darn, and Chris says 3 is the fullest. All right, so we are kind of all over the map with this as we were with alcohol, and that's cool because we are splitting hairs. It's not cool if you're all over the map when 1 is obviously like the lightest bodied wine and 2 and another one is obviously a very full-bodied wine, and you mix them up. But all of these are fuller-bodied wines, so it's just levels of distinction, and that's fine. So, all right. So, and Chris agrees with Rick. Okay, cool. So, little different camps. Everyone's got their own taste buds. So that's body. And finish is how long the wine lasts in your mouth. So after you swallow the wine, how long does that flavor? Can you continue and continue? Or does it just kind of fall off right away and kind of it's lost? So again, these are all going to be pretty similar. I like to count them in terms of seconds. So it says 1 to 5 in terms of short or long, but I like to think about, oh yeah, that was a 15-second finish, or that was a 2-second finish. Finish has nothing to do with the quality of the wine. It's more the specific grape type is going to give a longer finish. Also the winemaking technique. But don't think that a long finish means high quality wine. Sometimes, man, I want that flavor to end, but it just keeps persisting. So don't think of quality. Just think of like, this is another scientific experiment that we are doing with our wine. So this is our last scientific breakdown analytical test, and then we're going to think about wine totally different and get into the conclusion stage. So excited. Oh, thanks. This is when I almost pull off my laptop because I'm re-pouring wine. And all right, you just tell me which one had the longest finish. And for you, if y'all need to refill, this is 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so let's see here. Tawana says number 4 seemed to keep going like an Energizer bunny. Number 1 was the shortest. Okay, interesting. So 4 seems to be like a very kind of extreme wine. Got extremely high acid, extremely high tannins, extremely zero sweetness. But in terms of alcohol and body was lighter, and then the finish that kept going. That is interesting. How extreme it was on the spectrums of all of those things. So anyone else? What seemed to be the longest finish for you? I'm still tasting through mine. And now is when you get to taste wine in a totally different way. It's totally opened up. You've done all the smelling, you've done all the taste, and now you're just thinking about how long a flavor lasts in your mouth. It starts becoming less analytical and a more, I don't know, emotive. Yes,
It's really hard to separate this high tannins from a long finish.
Great. Great. So Some Mom says it's hard to separate the tannins, the lingering effect of the tannins, how long the drying sensation lasts in your mouth from the actual flavor of the wine. Yes, absolutely. Just like alcohol detracts from acidity, and acidity detracts from tannins. And so that's the beauty of wine. They should all distract from each other. Because if you could just very easily kind of taste a wine and only focus on one flavor, that means the wine's not integrated at all. So it's okay that it's hard to focus on the one thing. That means the wine is well made. And it just takes a little practice to kind of push your brain into that. But that is a good thing if it's impossible to kind of distinguish one thing from another. That means the wine is balanced and integrated and complex. So Beverly says 1 for the longest finish, and Rob is 4 on the longest finish. Okay, cool. So this is something that is okay to be totally controversial on, just like alcohol and body. So 1 and 2 have a longer finish for Sampa. Number 4 has the shortest finish, and that was the opposite of Tawana. Tawana always agrees with some. I think we just need to do a lunch sometime together and drink some wine. So Rick says number 4 are long finishes and longer than 2 and 3. So we've got kind of 2 opposite camps here. And you're right, that part of that is the lingering effects of the higher tannins and higher alcohol content. Number 3 lasted the longest, then 4, then 1 and 2. So we got the first peg for number 3. Number 1 had a long and pleasant finish. All right, cool. So we put not just quantitative but qualitative measures on that one. So I think I got everyone. Oh man. All right. So overall, let's talk overall. Let's forget about the break it down. Let's forget about the separation of each part of our mouth and focusing our reticular activation system. Now let's talk about overall. Taste the wine again. Do not think about acid, tannin, alcohol, sweetness, body, all of those things that we did. Don't even think about finish or body or anything. Smell the wine. Look through your aroma notes. Smell the wine. Taste it again. Red cherries when I first smelled it, but now all it tastes like is raisinated figs. Maybe I got all this smoke and forest fire on one, and now I'm getting all of this beautiful floral and herbaceous note. Taste through it again and think about your overall experience with the wine, having done all of these different tests. So I'm going to give you a minute because it's going to take a little bit of time. This is when you really need to think about your notes and think about anything you want to change. Cross off, like, man, I got pepper on this. There's no pepper in that. My brain just went there for whatever reason. Or maybe you highlight something even more, like I got pepper just a little bit. Now I'm getting it out the wazoo. I want to know where that phrase comes from. Someone look that up for me. Out the wazoo. That's an interesting phrase. I say it all the time when I'm talking about wine too. So anyways, crazy brain here. Overall, 1. Taste and tell me if there's anything that you want to change in your notes, because we're going to get into conclusion stage and it's going to be so much fun. And again, look through while you're tasting for this overall tasting, your final kind of notes. Look through your notes on smell and aroma and change or highlight anything you need to, because your notes have the answer. I promise you, your notes will have the answer. Ooh. Crystal says, we all agree here that this is more sweet. Tell me, on number one. Number one is more sweet and jammy than originally assessed. All right, cool. When we're first assessing the wine, our brains are hyper analytical, right? And now that we've kind of broken down that, and you're a little bit inebriated, and so your analytical brain is getting tired, this is when a different part of your brain comes in and gives you other notes that you will also need when it comes to conclusion stage. So awesome. Love it. Love it. All right, interesting. Oh, Tawana, I knew I should just ask you. While it professes not to know the origin of wazoo, it says that others suspect it might come from the French osao, I don't know that word, from the French osao or bird through Louisiana Creole term razoo for raspberry, at the razoo, so like out in the bush, out where the kangaroos kind of hang out. No, not kangaroos, it's a bird, sorry. Read that too fast. Yeah, okay, all right. I'm gonna have to like call NPR's away with words and ask them because I need a full breakdown of this now. Now I'm very curious. Basically, no one knows. I like it. Yeah. All right. Number 3, complicated. Every time I drink it, a different one. Yes, 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 yes. Please write that down. When it comes to conclusion stage, that will be such an important note. Every time you drink it, something else is there, for sure. Number 2, more black pepper. Okay, great, love it. The pepper notes usually sometimes are either the first thing or kind of like the 20th thing that I get in a wine, depending on what grape it is. Man. I am, for me, for number 3, it smells so bitter, so green, so herbal at the very beginning that now all these like darker, sweeter, more floral notes are kind of like coming out. It's a little bit rounder. So to me, 3 was the most surprising in how it opened up. But again, I would agree with you. I think next time I try it could be totally different, Connie. So number 4, is number 4 changing for y'all? Because number 4, everyone's like, it's flat, it's boring, it's weird. No, not because it's been open since 6, hopefully, and now it's been swirling in your glass actively for an hour and a half or so. Number 4 should be quite dramatically different than when you first tried it. Still super woodsy, super masculine, super angular and rustic. To me, the only thing that really like developed in that wine was a ton of cherry notes, like black cherry, red cherry, any kind of cherry. So that to me developed, I think, the most. All right. So number 4 has a lot of layers, more complex than initially expected. Okay, great. Yes. Number 4 is a little bit more complicated. Like stop sitting in the corner at a party just writing, like drawing sketches of everybody. Tell us something, like interact with us. But it is very shy and it is content sitting in the corner. All right, number 4, not my jam, but not jammy at all. Correct. Yes. It is truly not your jam in a very literal sense. Number 4 might be good at 11 p.m., meaning like you want to drink it at 11 p.m. on the regular, or by 11 it might have finally opened up. By 11 it might have finally opened up. I can't imagine you drinking wine specifically at 11 o'clock. Number 4 is going to continue to change as the night goes on. So Chris agrees with you there. Agreed about number 4. Very woodsy, but the cherry flavor coming out. All right, cool. Like sherry. Yeah, interesting. All right. So I'm so excited. This is my favorite night of the week. And the blind tasting classes are my favorite because, I don't know, there's something about focusing our brains with wine on a different way. I'm just a nerd and I love it. So let us whip up the sheet that is upside down that I told you not to look at until prompted. not the envelope. We are still hiding the envelope. Do not look at the envelope. But this sheet is what we will reference now. So let me break this down. We are going to figure out what grape we're tasting. After we figure out what grape we're tasting, we're going to open up the envelope. This envelope is a cheat sheet of this grape and all of its specified regions and the styles that they exhibit when they come from those regions. We're going to spend less time figuring out the grape and a little bit more time this time figuring out the region, because last time we did it opposite and I regretted doing that. So I'm going to break it down for you. Thin-skinned grape varieties are something that, like, when you hold a full glass sideways, you can read through it easily. This is not a thin-skinned grape variety. This is either a medium-skinned grape variety or a thick-skinned grape variety. But I'm going to automatically, and by the way, if you have been attending blind tasting classes for a while, this morning I spent like 3 hours updating this, fix some typos, and making it a little bit easier to work through. So if you have been keeping other notes, throw those pages aside and keep this one for now until I come up with a new page. But between medium-skinned grape varieties and thick-skinned grape varieties, I'm going to automatically, for your own benefit, rule out some grape varieties. And then we're going to read through the possibilities that are left, because that is what blind tasting is. You make all your notes, you analyze the wine, and then you deduce what grape it could be. And the easiest way to do that is to exclude anything it is absolutely not. So of the medium-skinned grape varieties, there are a couple varieties that can be chameleon grapes in terms of they operate sometimes like thick-skinned grape varieties. And it's literally just the thickness of the skin of the berry itself that changes all of the characteristics of the wine. So let us go ahead and rule out. Dun, dun, dun. Tempranillo. Mix it out. We're not going to talk about why. I'm just going to condense some options that might be more confusing than helpful. We are going to mix out Malbec. So I'm going to leave you 5 possible grape varieties. To me, Malbec and Tempranillo and Zinfandel can all be like similar enough grapes, and they vary so much in range of styles that they're the most complicated grapes to blind taste. I never get them right. So I'm going to mix out 2 of the 3 and just leave 1 of the 3 because they operate super similarly. I'll leave 1 of the 3 in there. Then we're left with the 3 Bordeaux varieties, which are Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Cabernet Sauvignon, and then 2 other grape varieties. So we're leaving Zinfandel and Syrah. Honestly, I'm not tricking you. All 4 of these grapes are either Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, or Syrah/Shiraz, same grape, different name. I promise you that they are varietally correct. I'm not picking out weird examples. But wines are confusing. They're made in different ways. Every vintage is different. Every winemaker is different. So let's go ahead and break this down. Let's read through them. So I've broken down this sheet now in terms of flavor profile, color, because I told you that that would be really important, and structure of each wine. So I'm going to just read through this, look through your notes, and what I recommend doing is making sure your notes match these things, right? Because if you just like, oh yeah, Merlot, yeah, this and you just have the answer, I promise you, make sure you read your notes. So don't think about what you think it should be. Don't let that confirmation bias come into effect. Read your notes. All right, so number 1, flavor profile, fruit forward. Well, that was like 3 of the 4. Cherry, plum, brambly fruit. That means like raspberry, blackberry kind of thing. Chocolate and vanilla with bay leaf and black tea leaves. Quite a few things that were mentioned in the smelling and tasting notes of that wine. Cool. Old World is usually blended with Cabernet Franc, so it can be earthier with more peppery notes and higher tannins. Interesting. Color, medium to deep concentration, a range from ruby to purple. Well, the coloring, that actually matches, sure. Structure, medium bodied, medium to high tannins, medium acid, medium to high alcohol content. Merlot is such a medium grape. M stands for Merlot, M stands for medium. It is so hard because you want your grapes to be more extreme, so it's easier to rule them out. Merlot is never going to let you rule it out because it's always medium. All right, Cabernet Franc, next grape. Green pepper, herbs, smoke, raspberries and blackberries, also that brambly fruit, sometimes some cocoa powder. We had some of those things for sure. Color can range from pale to medium in concentration. Old World is always going to be lighter. New World is going to be deeper and more ruby colored. By the way, whenever I talk about Old World and New World, if you haven't been attending these classes, Old World is everything European. New World is everything colonized, basically. North and South America, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. So difference in both history of winemaking, climate, and style of winemaking. But those are the 2 big camps, Old World, Europe, and the L of New World. All right, so go down to Zinfandel. Flavor profile, red and black fruit dominant, blackberry, strawberry, raspberry, smoke, spice, pepper. Cool, we had some of those notes too. I'm not making this easy on you at all, I'm sorry. Color can be made so concentrated that it appears to be a thick-skinned grape variety from ruby to purple in color. Man, all 3 of those are just like kind of hanging out in the possibility categories, so we can't narrow it down any further quite yet. Let's go through Cab and Shiraz. So Cabernet Sauvignon, black and red cherry, black and red plum, blackberry, currant, cassis. That would be like on the licorice side of things. Cedar, baking spices, pepper, sometimes green pepper, menthol, and eucalyptus. So the fruit notes in there, we talked about eucalyptus, so that's a possibility too. Color, deep concentration, deep ruby with purple undertones. And we had ruby and purple in this one, so we can't nail this one out either. Structure, full-bodied, medium plus to high tannins, medium acid, medium plus to high alcohol content. Can't rule this out. That is a strong possibility still. Syrah Shiraz, plum, blackberry, blueberry, meaty, gamey, iron, herbal, smoke, spice, pepper, and purple flowers. Again, we had some of these notes in here too. The color is deep concentration, distinctly purple hue. Well, 1 wine of the 4 matches that, but not all 4. Structure, medium plus to full body. Medium to medium plus tannins, more from the oak than the grape, so we're going to feel that differently in our mouth. Oak tannins are going to feel more in our cheeks, and grape tannins are going to feel more in our gums. So I told you to take a note of where you felt the tannins in your mouth, whether you felt them more in your gums, that would be more oak tannins, versus more in your cheeks, which would be more grape tannins. I'm sorry, I just said that reverse. I'm so sorry. You feel the grape tannins in your gums. You feel oak tannins more in your cheeks. So the structure is also medium to medium plus acid and medium to high alcohol content. So the only one of all 5 of these grapes that I kind of want to rule out would be based on color specifically. Does anyone? All right. All right. So we're already going for what we want to rule in. All right. Interesting. So we're going, Cabernet Sauvignon is a strong possibility for Tawana, Lisa, Okay. Seeing anyone else? Okay, and leaning towards Merlot over here. Okay, interesting. Anyone want to rule out anything? Anyone would be like, yeah, definitely not one of these. Let's just make it a little bit more simple. Rule out Syrah. 2 says, so Lorraine says 2 say Cabernet and 1 say Syrah at work. Okay. So Cab Franc for 3. That's right. Interesting. So, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to help us out here. I am going to help you rule out Syrah. Because Syrah, no matter where it comes from, the skin of the grape of Syrah is distinctly purple. And so I don't care where you grow the grape or how you make it, all of your wines will be like number 3 was in terms of coloring. So let's go ahead and rule out Syrah. Let's do this. We're going to rule out Zinfandel as well. And the reason is because this is a Bordeaux grape variety. So there are 5 distinct varieties that are grown in Bordeaux, red varieties. Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot are the 2 most dominant. Cabernet Franc, strong 3rd. And then you have Petit Verdot, Malbec, and Carmenere. I guess kind of like other blending grapes used as sprinkles, basically, in the blend. This is a Bordeaux grape variety. That means that it was born in Bordeaux. That does not mean it's all of these are from Bordeaux. Absolutely. It's just where it was born. So we're trying to figure out if it is Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, which is oddly the parent of Cabernet Sauvignon, or Merlot, which is the half-step sibling of Cabernet Sauvignon. So I'm going to give you those 3. Go ahead and make your final conclusion. And once we get to the stage where we can open up this envelope and reveal the grape, we will. So, all right, let's see y'all's notes. So Lisa says rule out Cab Franc. So that means, Lisa, you are between Cab Sauv and Merlot, which you said you were sticking with Cab Sauv. Love it. All right, cool. So Cab Franc. Some people, all right. Not some people, okay. You're guessing Cab Sauv, but based on color says Merlot. All right. Brian says Merlot, between Merlot and Cab Sauv, okay. None of them had the classic green pepper of Cab Franc. Yeah, that was the least indicative flavor profile. So it's a strong possibility that you can rule out Merlot too. So now it is in between Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. Final answer. Is it Cab Sauv or is it Merlot? Mom, what do you say? That was a heavy, deep breath. That's like when I ask her, never mind.
Merlot.
All right, some mom says Merlot. Papa, what do you say? Cab Sauv. Man, per usual, they're on the opposite sides of the fence. All right, so Tawana says Cab Sauv. Tawana is breaking with some mom to go with some pop. This is like unheard of. Very, very interesting. Cab Sauv, final answer, Beverly says. Jumping ahead, but number 4 feels very French Cab Sauv to me. So yeah, sometimes like our memories of specific wines from those regions help us figure it out. All right. Historical moment. I love it. And you think Napa Merlot. All right, cool. For number 3, that's making you go Merlot. Well, it is definitely one of the 2. And if everyone would like to, at this point, take your envelope and open it. I'm gonna let them open it. I'm gonna turn the camera so that you all can watch their faces. What is it? As you notice our wine-filled table.
Yay, Toronto!
All right.
Yes, the Cab Sauv win.
Oh, Papa, you won. Oh, man. That is kind of unheard of. Usually in blind tastings, my mom kind of kicks my dad out. She does really well, and my dad. That was a fun surprise. Congratulations, Papa. Yes. So we are drinking 4 different Cabernet Sauvignon grapes, and hopefully a refreshing style from what we might think of necessarily as Cabernet Sauvignon. So I got to tell you. These are, and here's why I think that might be. So the color, the concentration wasn't as deep as I'm used to seeing for Cabernet in any of these regions. I don't drink a whole lot of Cabernet. It's a little too heavy for me, and I drink a lot of wine, so I prefer something a little bit lighter. So I think that's why. And so I don't drink Cabernet a whole lot recently. So I think one of the reasons that all the coloring is a little bit more less concentrated, and this Cabernet in these 4 examples of Cabernet are because the wines are being picked earlier because of the warming temperatures. So the sugars themselves are ripe in the berries earlier than necessarily. The rest of the phenolics have developed in the wine. So I'm not really sure, but I think it has something to do about when they're picking the wine and how they're making the wine as a result of trying to like tame the intensity of the wine. So they're not soaking the wine as long with the skins of the grape, maybe because they don't want it to be so over the top. So I think that there's just some differences there in terms of how wines are being made in the last few years as a result of past years. So I was surprised at the coloring because, as I say here, thick skin grape varieties, you should not be able to read through it. And some of these wines we could. So if you picked Merlot instead of Cabernet, I would say that all 4 of these wines, I would give you full credit for those. The tannins were also outside of number 3 and 4. More reserved on these wines, and that goes, the tannins come from the skin of the grape, so does the coloring. So if you're not soaking the wine in the grape skins as long, you're going to get a little bit less tannins and a little bit less coloring as well. And they might not be doing that because they want to decrease the intensity of the wine because it's already so intense on alcohol. I'm not sure, but I have a suspicion that that might be the case. And this is just my ramblings. So now, may I have one of those cheat sheet pages? So this cheat sheet page is for us to figure out the region. So if you notice, there are 5 regions total. One of them is not included. We have 4 wines and 4 different regions. All 4 different. I promise I didn't cheat and give you 3 California wines and 1 French wine or something like that. 4 different regions. So it's like musical chairs. 4 regions and 5 wines. I'm going to break this down. I know everyone's had a lot of wine so far, so don't worry too much. Basically, we talked about Old World and New World. Old World, higher acid, higher minerality and earthiness. So a very focus on acid and earthiness and minerality. Lower alcohol and less fruit forward. There is 1 wine that is Old World. Of the 4 wines, which would you say that is? Look at your tasting notes. Tell me which wine most corresponds to that profile. Higher acid, higher minerality and earthiness, less alcohol, and less fruit forwardness. So it's going to be the least fruit forward or the least fruit dominant wine. There was 1 wine of the group that, yes, I see it. Number 4. Sorry, Papa, you won the blind tasting grape, but Sam Pap, it is number 4. Number 4 is an Old World wine. So let's just narrow it down. We've got France and Italy. Skip over the history. Y'all can read that on your own if you just want to get a little bit more information. But let's go to the style notes. So French style. We're talking specifically Bordeaux is the most predominant region for French Cabernet. Also some in Languedoc, Roussillon, and Gascony. But the French style is this. Cabernet Sauvignon is its most structured and angular in Bordeaux. Earthy, woodsy, and cedar notes with hints of leather, pepper, and herbs take over the red and black fruited flavors of the grape. New oak will highlight the structure. Cooler vintages will elevate the already higher acidity due to the fact that Cabernet itself is a late ripening grape variety. So if you have a cool fall and the grape hasn't achieved ripeness yet, it never quite gets there. It just falls a little short. So you always struggle with those higher levels of acid and tannins, less fruity flavors of Cabernet from this area. More pronounced cedar, vanilla, cinnamon indicate newer oak. We didn't have tons of that in this wine, so I don't think new oak is going to be the characteristic. That matches pretty well. Let's go down to Italy. This style is unique for Old World Cabernet because while the climate is cooler overall in terms of the globe, it is warm for the Old World. So you have this like Mediterranean coast because we're in Tuscany, Italy. It is, instead of cedar, chest, woodsy, and earthy notes of Bordeaux, they have more fruit forward than the French styles with meatier, chewier, and more raisinated fruit. The fruit is dark with licorice and figs, deeper concentration than found in France. So number 4, I guarantee you, is Old World. It's either France or Italy. What do you think? Process of elimination. This is what blind tasting comes down to. You take your notes and then you eliminate everything that doesn't really fit. Is it France or is it Italy? You tell me. I'm really bad at this wave thing also. There's always such a lag time delay on the on the comments, and they watch them at a later date. I feel like this is the time that they just get really drunk. They're waiting for something to happen in the chat room. All right, so France, we have Bordeaux specifically at 15 to 30 years. They can be amazing. Yes, austere while young. If you go up to the history part of the French wine section, it talks about how austere Bordeaux can be when young, and this wine was pretty austere. All right, so France. All right, Salman says France too. Anyone want to say Italy? Just throw it out there if you want to say Italy. Don't worry about me. Thank you. All right, so you are right. It is indeed French. We are drinking a Bordeaux. We are drinking a left bank Bordeaux, which means that it's going to be Cabernet dominant versus the right bank, which is more Merlot dominant. We are drinking Chateau Landot. It is from the Haute-Medoc region of Bordeaux, and it is on the back. If you turn it around, 75% Cabernet Sauvignon, 20% Merlot, and 5% Petit Verdot. Could indicate be indicative of why it was such light coloring, but also that's just what happens when you pick earlier and it's a later ripening grape and it's a cooler climate, made in a very different style. If anyone is confused about why I picked a red blend, why I picked a Cabernet that has 20% Merlot in it, just so you know, any California Cabernet that you see, or Washington, not Washington State, but most of the world, if you label a wine as one grape, it only has to be 85%, sometimes only 75% that grape for it to legally be labeled a Cabernet Sauvignon. So I needed to find a Bordeaux grape variety. Bordeaux wine that was at least 75% Cabernet, but they're generally always blended, and that's the most classic example of Cabernet, so I could not show it in a tasting. The wine will be amazing if you have it with steak. Wine will be amazing if you decant it for a couple hours, but I don't like to do that for a blind tasting because it's about analyzing the wine instead of like enjoying it for a pairing. So we did indeed have a French Cabernet Sauvignon from the Bordeaux region of France as our wine number 4. So you turn over your page here, we have the New World wine regions. So we have 3 wines left and only 3 regions. Every country in the entire world that makes wine makes Cabernet Sauvignon. So I could have made this list a whole lot longer, but I wanted to make it a little bit more simple. So basically, we're just trying to match. So you have 3 wines, 3 regions represented. These are the regions. Again, I'm never trying to trick you. And now let's just figure out what they are. So we're going to skip over reading about the history. You can read that on your own time if you are interested. I'm too much of a nerd to skip over the history part. Like I just couldn't do it. So let's read through. California style. Is this wine number 1, 2, or 3? Here it is. Lower acid than its French counterparts. Well, yeah, all of these wines were that. But still tannic and grippy. Red fruits dominate the wine, typically currant and cassis. Plum and cherry with hints of licorice and green pepper. Notes of eucalyptus and more red fruitedness indicate higher elevation vineyards or a more old world style. So again, not every wine fits in a perfect box because winemakers have ideas and their ideas change the way wines will taste. If you have hints of dill and coconut, they might indicate American oak aging. Cedar, vanilla bean, and cinnamon will indicate more French oak aging. So that's California. One of these wines is a California wine. If you have an idea, you can either write on here 1, 2, 3, or something like that. However you want to do it. Let's go through Washington. Style is black fruits dominate with the wine. Black fruits dominate the wine with blackberries, currant and cassis, same thing, plum and cherries, all but with the fruit leaning to more the black end of the spectrum rather than red. Interesting. So look through your notes. Which one had more red fruit versus black fruit? Undertones of cocoa powder, vanilla, herbs, and cedar. Richer and more sultry and feminine than California Cabernet Sauvignon. French oak is more predominantly used here. So you'll find less dill and coconut, more cedar, vanilla, and cinnamon. Coloring will often be deeper and more purple than California red tinged examples. All right, y'all had your notes. I was reading them in the comment section. There are the answers in your notes. So this is either 1, 2, or 3. Mark your ideas. Australia. So again, I only picked 3 New World examples. They're all here, and I picked them because I love these wines. The California might have the occasional pop of eucalyptus and green pepper or menthol. These greener notes abound in a typical Australian Cabernet Sauvignon. Wines tend to be more what I call starbursty. Y'all have heard me mention this before, where it's just pow, one flavor, pow, another. Less integrated and more like vibrant and like it's doing a dance. Flavors are pronounced, vibrant, and flashy, and varied, meaning lots of different things going on without necessarily being as integrated and balanced. There's an oscillation going back and forth between red and black fruit, grippy tannins on the back end, and hot on the nose, so higher alcohol content, where you like feel it into your sinuses when you smell the wine. Those are typical characteristics of Australian Cabernet. Coloring will also often be deeper and more purple than California examples. So go ahead and put your notes in there, talk amongst yourselves, ask me questions if you want me to clarify anything for you, but match it. Is California 1, 2, or 3? Is Washington 1, 2, or 3? Is Australia 1, 2, or 3? Let's see here. So Lorraine says 2 is California, 3 is Washington, and 1 Australia. Okay. Some mom agrees with that. All right. Some mom agrees with you, Lorraine. Lisa says number 3, Australia. Toss up between 1 and 2, California and Washington. Okay. Steve Hill says 1 is Australia, 2 Washington, 3 California. Okay. Got a 1 Cali, 2 Washington, 3 Australia for Tawana. Anyone else want to make your final conclusions before I do the final reveal? We are at that exact 2-hour mark, and hopefully we had a little bit more time to think about our notes at the end of this class than we did, but I know it's later than normal due to our later start. So any final notes? Chris says 1 California, 2 Washington, 3 Australia. So that was the exact thing as Lisa. Oh no, Lisa was as Tawana. All right. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you to clarify. You got to pick one or the other for 1 and 2. Which is California? Which is Washington State? Oh, man, stress level is high. And anyone else want to mark your final conclusions on these wines? I'm going to start slowly tearing the paper off wine number 1. This is definitely a screenshot. Oh, terrible sound. Yeah, no stress. No worries. All right. All right, Lisa says California and number 2 Washington. We gave her a final. And you're right. Number 1, California Cabernet. So Lisa and Tawana and Chris, y'all nailed it. Awesome. And again, we're all splitting hairs here, and the idea is not to get the perfect right answer. The idea is to have fun with it and learn to analyze the wines more. So this is Neverland Cabernet Sauvignon. It is from Santa Barbara County, California, instead of Napa Valley, because to do a Napa Cab for a class like this, I'd have to charge more for the class, and I wanted to keep it affordable. So this is field recordings. This is Andrew Jones. I featured several of his wines before. The Fabulous Zinfandel, the Wonderwall Pinot Noir. Excellent winemaker. Definitely makes his wines in a more reserved style, so it doesn't fit what our brains think of when we think of California Cabernet. Because he makes his wine in a little bit more of a classic, more reserved style. Still showcases the fruit of California and the sun of California, but with a little bit more reservation. Yes, field recordings, awesome. All right, so wine number 2. It's either Washington State or Australia. If you want to modify any of your final conclusions based on this, you have a 50-50 shot getting it right. Tell me if you've changed your mind. Let's see. It is indeed Washington State. We are in Columbia Valley. We are Chenin. We have featured their Merlot before at a blind tasting. This is their 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I think it might be like 97% Cabernet Sauvignon. 2015 vintage. And alcohol percentage. Let's see, because I'm curious. I didn't know this in advance. This is wild. We are actually higher with the Washington State Cab than we are with the California Cab. 14.2 versus 13.9. So super, super small differences, but slight. And again, legally, you can vary how you label your wine alcohol percentages. So they're not always exact. So it's not the most important thing. So that leaves wine number 3. So we are drinking the Alpha Crucius Australia. It's called the Titan. If you have been buying 6-packs from me and have ever had the Whitsand Cabernet Sauvignon, that is their second label. Same company is making this label as well. Alpha Crucius is their higher end label from McLaren Vale, is how that's pronounced. It's their 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon. And I believe that one is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon and super classic McLaren Vale Cabernet Sauvignon. There was like loads of, to me, smelled like my friends were smoking a menthol cigarette by me. It was like so mentholated and poppy. So to me, if I was going to guide you on which wine I would pick and why, the first one seemed more red fruited to me. It seemed rounder, less acidic, and so that would lead me to believe a little bit more of that California red fruited style. While it was not mentioned in the aroma notes or the tasting notes of this wine, I did get loads of cocoa powder on this Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you wrote that down and were too afraid to say it out loud because it sounded weird, no, next time, be brave and own your tasting notes. And that cocoa powder always leads me to believe Washington State. So to me, it doesn't matter what red variety it is. Washington State always has this like cocoa powder aromatic to it, just like Australian wines. No matter what red grape variety it is, always have these like eucalyptus mentholated aromatics to them. So that's what would help me figure out between the three what they all were. But it's all in the journey of analyzing the wine a little bit more. Tawana, you like nailed it tonight. What are you talking about? You did it, but you thought it didn't fit. It did fit. You listened to your tasting notes. I'm so proud of all of you all for letting the notes talk to you, letting the wines talk to you, first of all, to give you your notes, and then letting the notes talk to you to give you your conclusions. This was an absolute blast. I think this has been my favorite blind tasting class yet. If you have any hints or notes for me to how of other classes that you would like to see in the future, or how I could better do these blind tastings and make it easier or more understandable in the future, I'd be happy to hear. You all have my cell phone number and my email address. Thank you all again about just the flexibility on timing. I'll let you go now so that you can all get some rest and so that I can get my voice back. Thank you again, and I hope to see you next week for our volcanic series class. Not volcanic series, the soil series class number 1, where we focus on volcanic vineyards from around the world and why it matters. So super, super excited to have all these first timers here. Hope you enjoyed the class. Send me your notes on future classes or anything you'd like to see in advance. So yes, number 4 will be ready in an hour. Revisit these wines again when you're not analyzing the wines, and I will send an email to everyone about the pricing if you want to reorder them. The 4th wine is not available through me. I had to go purchase that at a different wine store because all of my deliveries fell through for that 4th wine. So, but Total Wine sells it. So I'll give you the information of all 4 of these wines, and if you'd like to order any, you can let me know. So thank you so much. I am glad that it was more fun than you thought it would be. Hopefully it was a blast, and hopefully I took away some of the intimidation and scary factor of blind tasting and made it a little bit more approachable for everyone. So look forward to seeing you all again. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, and stay healthy. Cheers.